You're. What up, ATP? It's your boy Claymore. Oh, it's my day off. It's my Saturday. You know what I mean? Shout out to the subscribers. Shout out to the family. You know how we gonna carry it. Sorry if you guys feel like, where have you been for the past 4 or 5 days? Listen, guys, it's gonna be like that for a little bit. I'm busy on the other side of the part of the internet called actual life. You know what I mean? So we're doing things, we're moving around, and all for the better though. Building. But I'm doing a little catch-up video on what's been going on since the last time we spoke. So the last time that we spoke, what was it? I think I was commenting on the Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney LA press conference, emphasized on some things. Shout out to everybody, from what I understand, I guess the whole entire nappy head motherfucker title, or I guess some people felt as if I was holding the Garcias, or specifically Henry Garcia in that situation, a little bit more to task than I held maybe a Bill Haney, who also, was saying disparaging things about Henry Garcia. And I understand, at the end of the day, I wasn't trying to get in the middle of an argument, I just wanted people to understand. I want people to understand that highlighting that was more than, it was beyond Bill Haney and Henry Garcia. It was pushing back on racially charged words that trigger a race of people in the country, and just bringing awareness to that. Wasn't trying to defend Bill Haney. Bill Haney can defend himself, and as a lot of you guys have mentioned, he's the one who threw out a shot, so he can get whatever he's going to get coming back to him. If I would have heard of that conversation happening privately, or if I would have seen that happen privately, if I'd have been witnessing, I probably wouldn't have had no issues with what Henry Garcia said. But being on that public platform in front of the world like that, calling out another black man, saying you're a nappy-headed motherfucker, was, something that needed to get pushed back on. But, I don't know if Henry Garcia is racist. I don't know if I care so much either, but definitely not putting that jacket on him. It wasn't about trying to make him look that way. If he did look that way, that was of his own doing. He's the one who said what he said. I wasn't trying to highlight it. I didn't even want to overemphasize it in my video. I don't think I did it, as a matter of fact, except for, I guess, in the title, you guys may say that that's what that was, a clickbait situation. But yeah, that's what it is. I don't know if Henry, I'm not going to say I don't think he's racist. I don't know him. I don't know him to be racist. It wasn't about him or trying to get him to learn a lesson. It was about the world. It was about black people. It was about my son, who's sitting next car next to me, who has dreads in his hair. You know what I'm saying? It was about that. It was about bringing awareness to that whole nappy-headed comment. You guys do your research and your Googles on that, and you understand where that word came from, and understand that it has a lot of racially charged tones to it. It was based on slavery. It had a lot of base in slavery. It was how the slave masters addressed the slaves. It gets deep. I promise you, if you go on Google and you type nappy hair, you'll get nothing positive from it. You'll get completely where that came from. And I think as people in our community, sometimes we get so comfortable even with saying the word nigger. You know what I'm saying? When we say it to each other, we're so comfortable saying it, and we get so used to it, we get desensitized to it, that at times when another race says it, that's when it triggers, right? Because even though you use it daily, all the time, between your friends, playing around, joking, you don't take that serious. As soon as another race says it, it triggers you, because that's just a reminder for you guys, and even a reminder for myself as to, we need to watch what we say, where we say that, man, because a lot of people can mistaken our comfort with using it between ourselves with, oh, they're over it and we can use it as well freely without being racist, just using it the same way they're using it, just to clown each other or just to make jokes on each other, and things to take into consideration, but not to harp on that too long. So the biggest thing about that press conference was that Ryan Garcia was looking unfocused, right? That's what I mentioned in the video. Said that he looked like he was dealing with some mental health challenges that he was trying to get through, and it was concerning from my point of view, off the simple strength that he's supposed to be getting ready for one of the biggest fights of his life, April 20th, against a pound for pound great fighter in Devin Haney. And as the week has gone ahead and moved forward. You see that Ryan Garcia is kind of like unwinding even more. He's coming apart even more. Family members have put out posts asking people to pray for him, mentioning that this is not a trolling situation, that he really is dealing with some mental health challenges. There's a lot of concern there, and naturally and rightfully so, now there's concern as to whether or not the fight will even happen on 420 between Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney. Even when you look on the press conference to understand that they had brought Arnold Barboza out on the panel he had no opponent. They were saying that he was going to be a co-main eventer, but who was he going to fight against, right? Who's he getting ready for? But when he came up to the podium to speak to everybody, because, he would have just been sitting there looking weird, on the panel, he kind of mentioned, if either one of these guys drop out of the fight, you guys know I'm going to be here, so there's definitely going to be a fight April 20th. I don't think anybody is concerned about Devin Haney showing up April 20th, right? I think we all understood and deduced that, okay, this is about Ryan Garcia. If Ryan Garcia doesn't show up, that's why Arnold Barboza is here. So that might have also been part of what was stressing Ryan Garcia out. I think, speaking on Ryan Garcia specifically, to say that Ryan Garcia seems to be dealing with a lot of entitlement issues. He does have spoiled energy, and I don't mean to throw shots at the young boy. He's a very successful man in his own right, a multi-millionaire. I'm not trying to throw shots at him, but just to be honest and transparent about the fact that, coming up the way he did, with all the attention he was getting, being the new golden boy, even with the way he dealt with the fact that Canelo Alvarez was the face of boxing on the Golden Boy Promotions and the focus that was being put on him, it seemed like he was kind of like very early feeling like, nah, he's not the star, I'm the star. You hear stories from Eddie Reynoso and Canelo Alvarez, who disconnected from him, saying that he wasn't disciplined enough, he wasn't focused on the sport, he didn't sacrifice as much as they wanted him to sacrifice to be as great of a fighter as they saw in him, the potential in him to be. Then you move on to Joe Goosen, who also spoke towards the way you train Ryan Garcia was different than the way you train anybody else. Now, Joe Goosen was trying to be very diplomatic about the way he was saying it, but at the end of the day, what it came down to is Joe Goosen shouldn't have to train Ryan Garcia differently than he trains anybody else, as far as expectations, as far as understanding that I need you to be here, I need you to work this way, I need you to take my instructions, that type of energy, right? Like, every fighter is different. You have some slick fighters, you have some athletic fighters, you have flat-footed power punching fighters, so you do train fighters differently, but at the end of the day, the expectations shouldn't be that much different to where Joe Goosen, who's a Hall of Fame trainer, would have to even elaborate as to why things don't look correct as far as his relationship, as far as trainer to fighter relationship is concerned between him and Ryan Garcia, right? Now you move forward and he's with Derek James. Derek James hasn't publicly said that he has any issues with Ryan Garcia, but I do think there's some red flags in there that you can see where Derek James, and there's a training video that I referred to in my last video where I saw Derek James have a little bit of a quiet conversation with Ryan Garcia real quick before they started training, and it wasn't super clear, but if you really look at it, it looks like what Derek James was saying to Ryan Garcia is, I got your back, but I need you to focus right now. So to me, naturally, just watching that would be like, why would he even have to say that? You would think he would come to the gym focused, that he doesn't need to be brought back in, and in that part, it just seemed like Derek was bringing him in, like, leave the social media world, leave all this stuff going on that you're doing on trolling on cameras and all this stuff. Right now, I need you here with me in this gym so we can work on a strategy and getting you ready to fight against Devin Haney. I thought that was very significant. But like I said, guys, naturally, there's some questions and some concerns as to whether or not Ryan Garcia is going to even make it at this point on April 20th to fight against Devin Haney. And I guess, we can find comfort in that there will definitely be a fight that night, right? Because Arnold Barboza is getting ready to fight Devin Haney, and that would be a great fight. But unfortunately for Devin Haney, once again, on this uphill battle he's fighting to gain the notoriety he wants to gain, as far as with the casual fans, as far as crossover quality, as far as pay-per-view sales, becoming a big box, I was gonna say box office, but maybe that's not the correct word, but being a big seller, being a big prize fighter, he has this mission now that he's trying to do. And also people who have that misunderstanding, of, I thought he was a legacy fighter. Fighters have different stages in their careers. I've spoken about this in other videos as well. Devin has become undisputed at 135. He's a young guy. I don't think he's like 25, 26 years old. I'm not sure how old he is right now, top of my head, but he's in that mid-range area right now, where he's earned a lot of accolades very early in his career, and he's made it clear and communicated through different interviews that in this chapter of his career right now, at this moment, he's more focused on making the biggest fights he can for the largest amounts of money that he can. He's working on that part of his career right now, to where when he's speaking to a Gervonta Tank Davis, for example, he's able to come to that table with not only accolades that he's earned as far as being a boxer, but also in value that he's built in himself by fighting the biggest fights and making the most money. And that's where he's at with it, right? So Ryan Garcia, figuring his life out, dealing with the adversities of the reality that he has, that he probably is just dealing with the fact that he has to come to a truth with himself that he hasn't done the work that his counterparts have done. Like as far as Gervonta, Devin, a lot of his counterparts, honestly, Shakur even, people who are in the same age bracket as him, who came into boxing the same time as him, he has to come to an understanding that, listen, man, the time you took off with all this mental health hiatus, things you were talking about, and all the difficulties that trainers had in training you, they're all coming to a head right now, right? Like, these are the biggest moments. I've made videos where I mention about stay ready, you don't got to get ready, and this is what happens to fighters. And this is also why activity is such an important factor in a fighter's career. These fighters fighting once, maybe twice a year, this isn't good for them in their careers, not only for their notoriety, but also, you get dull, you get ring rust. These things happen. You jump into the ring with somebody who's been as active as a Devin Haney, or active as, Anthony Joshua or Tim Tszyu, people who've been real active in the past couple of years. And although on paper you are the better fighter, people would expect you to do well, you suffer consequences like a Deontay Wilder did against against Joseph Parker, or you end up, how Errol Spence suffered against Terrence Crawford. Activity. I'm going to keep on pushing that because it's so important. And these are the reasons why we question and have concerns for promotional platforms like the PBC, who seem to be going to a transition phase themselves and trying to get their legs up under them. But at the same time, while they're doing that, a lot of fighters, 150, 200 plus fighters, that number just moves everywhere, by the way. I've heard 150 fighters, I've heard 150 plus fighters, I've heard 250, I've heard 300 fighters on their roster before. I have no idea. I've never did the numbers. So I'm going to be fair and say somewhere between 150 to 200 plus fighters on their roster that just aren't as active as they should be, and fights that would be great fights are losing value because of the fact that those fighters aren't probably going to be those prime fighters we saw the potential in making the great fights when they finally fight. You look at, for example, David Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez. This is one of the most anticipated fights right now in boxing. But because these fights aren't happening, and these fighters have a tendency on waiting on these fights, right? Like David Benavidez has been waiting for Canelo Alvarez. He took his little fights in between. Thank God he was also pretty active last year as well. All considering, he was active last year, but, waiting for these fighters, Boots Ennis right now, waiting on a Terrence Crawford, or waiting on that right title fight. It'll be almost a year, right, coming up in July since the last time Boots Ennis fought, and I'm hearing that he's supposed to be on Canelo's undercard on that May 4th card. So it'll be right under a year since the last time he fought. That's just not good enough, and I know, and I believe that Bozy and Boots Ennis over there in Philly, shout out to that camp, they have to also be feeling the pressure of that, right? This is why you'll hear things like when I might say something like, man, Boots might consider going to 154, instead of staying at 147, hanging out. Why? Because of activity, to get him busy. Not to mention, as a boxing fan, I want to see the man fight, right? So these are things we're going to watch develop as time goes by. But yeah, Ryan Garcia seems to be, like I said before, I have to double down on it, dealing with an uphill mental health struggle, and he has to figure that out. From what I understand, his last posting, which was yesterday evening, was assuring the fans that fight was happening on April 20th. Just making sure everybody understands that he's not out of the fight. He's very much focused on being in the fight. So those are his words. But talk without the walk, right? What does it mean to us? Watching what he's doing, watching what his family's saying he's doing, at the least, it's concerning. Wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't make the fight. on April 20th. Hoping he does. I want to see that fight, but at the same exact time, what happens if he just gets washed and he gets cooked? Is it because he just was going through mental health problems? It just takes away the value of the win, even from Devin Haney. I definitely resonate with Devin Haney's point of view on this whole situation, as far as him communicating to Ryan Garcia, what are you doing right now, bro? What do you mean you're smoking and drinking, and what are you talking about? You talking about all this come to Jesus stuff, and you're not perfect, and I mean, nobody's perfect, you know what I mean? And shout out to you in your spiritual, in your faith base that's keeping you going. But some things aren't made for everybody to hear, right? There's still a fight that needs to be sold. There's still an understanding that needs to be sold, that this fight is going to be competitive and that everybody needs to tune in to watch this fight. So if you're speaking from that point of view and you're carrying yourself as you are online, it's discouraging and it's discrediting the value of the fight. Right? So, I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at with you guys. Go ahead and leave a comment. Tell me what you think. And once again, am I reaching? Am I reaching on this Ryan Garcia situation? I think earlier it might have looked like I was reaching, right? When I've said things earlier about Ryan Garcia not being a focused, not being a disciplined fighter, a lot of people felt like I was taking unfair shots at him. When I speak about him de-evolving or digressing from his fight with Luke Campbell to where he is today, to say that I don't think he's gotten better as a fighter. And I truly just don't believe it. I believe Luke Campbell was the best version of Ryan Garcia I've seen, as far as being in there with top level competition, dealing with a little bit of adversity in the fight, but showing that grit and being able to actually stop Luke Campbell. I thought that was a promising thing that I saw in Ryan that night. Maybe some people might not feel that way, I don't know. But I was not impressed. I mean, with the Fortuna fight, I was a little impressed. That was a very quick left hook. I think that was one of the best left hook highlights that you could see, because it happened so fast, people thought it was a phantom punch, right? But then him fighting against Gervonta Tank Davis, it was just amateur season. It was an amateur fight. Gervonta was laughing at him during the fight. Ultimately just getting up under those hooks, attacking his body, counter punching, catching him with left left hooks of his own. As he was coming in, put him on his tail like the first or second round, and then ultimately putting him down with a body shot that we could see coming from a mile away. He was just charging and just letting that left hook go over and over, back to back again. It wasn't a difficult fight. And sometimes, once again, a fight like that, with Ryan Garcia fighting the way he did, it almost removed a little bit of the value of the fight to Gervonta Tank Davis, because it wasn't that, we could see that it wasn't difficult for Gervonta. It wasn't a competitive fight. Gervonta was really just measuring him the whole fight, and ultimately ended up putting him down with the body shot that, and a lot of people feel like Ryan Garcia gave up in that fight. So a lot to break down, and we're looking forward to see how this develops. But at this point, Ryan Garcia seems at least at a minimal questionable for April 20th. I myself am getting myself ready a little bit to see Arnold Barboza fight Devin Haney, and we'll see how that turns out. We'll speak about the sparring footage tape being dropped too the next day, because I thought that was a very big deflect. And shout out to all my contemporary content creating spaces, my peers in the space who have focused a lot of their energy on this sparring video. But in my opinion, I think you guys bit the worm a little bit. I think there was a bigger story there. I think it was clearly dropped to pull people away from the real conversation, which was, is the value of that fight still there? Where's Ryan Garcia mentally at? I think that is the bigger story. But obviously I'll make a video on the sparring tape as well, and give you my opinion on it. I mean, I'm not going to even do a video on it. I can tell you right now, I don't care about that sparring tape. He was 16 years old. It was about almost 10 years ago. I don't think it means anything. And to the Gervonta Tank Davis fans out there who have been constantly shooting at Devin Haney and the value of this fight, now that you've seen that tape, what now? You guys don't need to see the fight no more, or can we finally see them fight? There's obviously a lot of attention that's been garnered over Gervonta Tank Davis and Devin Haney's relationship, as far as in the ring is concerned. So at some point, if they're going to fight, cool. If they're not, what do we care about some stinking sparring video from 10 years ago? That was complete deflection from what really was going on. Matter of fact, I'm not going to even make a tape on it. I just gave y'all my perspective on it. I don't care about that tape. So leave a comment, like, subscribe, Remember to hit your bell icon so you get alert when I'm dropping this content. We definitely got to touch base again. You guys show up tonight. We are doing a live tonight. Should be kicking off about 7:30. Me and my boy Ray Davis going to be breaking down the whole week's worth of boxing. We got a lot of boxing to talk about. Amanda Serrano didn't get to fight. She had a little injury. Jake Paul had to refund everybody. That was crazy. Raymond Ford had a big challenge ahead of him, was able to step up to the challenge and become the new WBA featherweight champion. That was very proud of. Shout out to Raymond Ford. I'm putting a video about that. Thought that fight was very telling. Some people saw it as Raymond Ford wasn't who he's supposed to be. I think he was fighting against a very difficult, high level, high pedigree fighter that people just didn't know about and didn't understand it was going to be that challenging. But I think he showed grit in that fight, and it ultimately shows that you never give up all the way to the end, being able to stop that guy in the last 10 seconds or so of that fight. What an amazing fight. I watched it last night. I'm going to watch it again today, but we'll talk about that as well. Like, comment, subscribe. It's your boy Rain, and at this point, we out.